Alrighty, so it's Wednesday, which means it's time for another News of the Week episode, and obviously the biggest news coming out today is the fall 2022 MLS schedule being released this morning, and now every single team know exactly who they're going to be playing next season. And as always, I will be definitely making some videos related to the schedule being released. I of course will make a video looking at the 10 games I'm looking forward to the most next season, and as an annual tradition, I will also make a video looking at the full San Jose Earthquake schedule for next season. But you know, with this season, it seems like one thing that is going to be changed is that, you know, for each teams, they're actually going to be playing against their conference opponent twice, and they also get to play against 8 teams that is in the other conference. And one of the things that a lot of fans were very frustrated last season is the fact that their team was basically playing against the same team a lot of time, and that they only get to play against the other conference like twice. And I know with the way that as the league is expanded, and unless if they decided to maybe even expand the number of games in the regular season, you're not going to get as much of those interconference matchup. But this season, at least, I think we're gonna get much more of that, because each team does play against teams from the other conference, and 8 different teams in that case. And it also gets a chance for, you know, recently with some teams that has been expanded into the league, like Charlotte, Nashville, and Inter Miami. Well, for Charlotte, I'm pretty sure every single team, when they play them the first time round in the Eastern Conference, or if you have some of these 8 Western Conference team that is lucky to play against Charlotte FC, they of course will be meeting against each other for the first time. But you know, for some Western Conference team, they actually have not been able to play the likes of Nashville SC or Inter Miami, and the fact that there is some chances that is going to happen. I know with the Quakes, they get to play against Nashville for the very first time, and also Inter Miami, and the same case for Minnesota, get to play against Nashville and Inter Miami for the very first time. It definitely does make it a lot better, and it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to be playing against them in the first ever meeting. But nevertheless, I'm definitely hyped for the season to begin after the schedule is being released. And the other thing that I also love about when the schedule is released, and especially the full schedule, is that I love when teams make some schedule release video on their social media website. I mean, I know not every team, of course, does it. Some teams might just plainly put out a graphics, talk about what the schedule is, but there are some teams that they're creative in terms of some of their schedule release video, and some of them are downright just awesome with how they do it. And basically there's some that are kind of funny in a way that it kind of troll the other fan base, or even troll their hated rival in their schedule release video. But nevertheless, that's another aspect I love about it, because again, I get to check every single team and look at how they create like their schedule release video to their fans. Now, another thing that also happened today that didn't really get as much attention, because obviously I know a lot of people were focused on the full 2022 MLS schedule, but the CONCACAF Champions League round of 16 draw actually happened today, and 5 of these MLS team that's going to be going to CCL next season will now know who they're going to be playing in the round of 16. Now, notice I put six different matchup here, because I also want to kind of include the Canadian Premier League and talk about Forge FC making a historic first ever CCL appearance and become the first ever Canadian Premier League team to play in the CONCACAF Champions League. But first, in terms of these 5 teams that's going to be going to CCL and that's coming out of MLS, we start off with the Seattle Sounders. They're going to be playing against Montagua, which is a Honduran team, and I have a feeling for the Sounders. I mean, I guess they're happy the fact that they get to not have to face against a Liga MX's team, though judging by how the bracket is, if they do beat against Montagua, and then if Leon does win in their other matchup, which I actually forgot who they of course play, there could be a case where we could have a rematch of the League Cup's final last season as soon as the quarterfinal. But unfortunately, after that, you know, Montreal, they get the unlucky draw. I mean, we knew coming into this draw that there's going to be one unlucky MLS team that's going to have to play against a Liga MX team in the round of 16. And also, this is really for the second year in a row where the Canadian Championship winner has to to get the hard luck draw, as Montreal will be playing against Santos Laguna, which that's definitely not going to be an easy draw. But knowing the fact that Montreal has had some good history in this competition, don't be surprised if they can maybe cause an upset in that one. Then you got the New England Revolution playing probably the easiest opponent out of all the MLS team that's going to be facing against Cavalier AS, which is a Haitian team. Then you got the Colorado Rapids playing against Castillanos, which is a Guatemalan team, and a team that the Houston Dynamo faced a couple of years ago. And then NYCFC making their return to CCL in their second appearance in their franchise history in the CONCACAF Champions League. They'll be playing against Santos de Guapeles, I think that's how you pronounce, which is actually a Costa Rican team, and they actually are making their first ever appearance in the CONCACAF Champions League. So it's kind of surprised the fact that, you know, coming out of Costa Rica, you usually maybe get like teams like Saprissa or Alajuelense in there, but both of them is not in the competition this year, which is, I think this is the first time that actually has happened where neither of the team make it into the competition. So that should be an interesting draw, an interesting game to see if NYCFC can, of course, beat them. And as I mentioned, I do include a bonus game that I want to talk about, which is Forge FC making the Canadian Premier League proud by being the first representative in this competition. But unfortunately, they got also the hard luck of draw, and they kind of joined their Canadian compatriot Montreal in terms of have to facing against the Liga MX team. And I think they also even have a tougher one because they have to play against Cruz Azul, a team that of course knocked off TFC last year in the CONCACAF Champions League, and that's going to be one that it's going to, if Forge FC can pull it off, I think you could say that that's even more of an upset than what we saw last year with TFC knocking off Lyon in the round of 16. But now moving on, away from talking about schedule being released, to now talk about head coach that has been hired, because we had two head coach that either was hired or promoted by their team. And in the case of Pat Nonnan, he was being hired by FC Cincinnati, as this was announced a couple of days ago. And I guess FC Cincinnati decided to do the next best thing, and at least their GM Chris Albright, you know, knowing the fact that he was thinking about maybe trying to get his buddy Jim Curtin to join the bandwagon and join FC Cincinnati, and how, you know, that of course didn't work out. And I'm not surprised that didn't work out, because I didn't think Jim Curtin was going to be leaving the Union. But at least Cincinnati kind of did the next best thing, or in the case of Chris Albright, he did the next best thing by taking the assistant head coach of the Union and the right-hand man of Jim Curtin, Pat Nonnan, becoming the next head coach of the team. Now, you know, as well as Pat Nonnan has done as the assistant head coach for the Union, and also was a U.S. men's national team head coach, he's never had any experience of being a head coach. And usually when you have no experience of being a head coach, that's kind of like a baptism by fire, with the way that we'll see whether or not if his pedigree of being an assistant head coach is going to translate in being the head coach level. But obviously, I think at least for FC Cincinnati's sake, hopefully that is going to be the case, because let's be honest, every fan base want this team to do well. And that, I said it many times last year, the fact that I really felt bad of all the pain and suffering that Cincinnati fans has to deal with. And now with them getting Chris Albright, who knows how to build a winner, doing his day with the Union, and now hiring a guy that was the right hand man of Jim Curtin. And I have a feeling he's definitely going, even though he is going to be heading into unfamiliar territory, being a head coach of a team, I think he should make that transition well, and he should at least guide the Cincinnati team to be a respectable team next season. Now, RSL have promoted Pablo Masteroni as the permanent head coach of their team. Now, this is an interesting one, because yes, I know it was an incredible Cinderella run that RSL has had, and, you know, Pablo Masteroni, especially in the playoffs, have shown some of his tactician genius with some of the tactics that he used in the playoffs to kind of outsmart the opposing head coach. But if you not include the incredible playoff run that RSL has had, they were kind of mediocre under Pablo Mastrani. And there was even case where if this team did not make the playoffs, I don't think a lot of people would think that Mastrani was going to be the permanent head coach of this team. And I guess the reason why he was made the permanent head coach is because of that great playoff run. But there's one thing of having a great playoff run, then compared to how you of course do throughout the regular season. And I know when Pablo Masteroni in his previous head coaching job, which was with the Colorado Rapids, it did not end up well whatsoever. So yeah, I just want to kind of warn RSL fans, like, you know, even though I know Pablo Mastrani did well with this team in the playoffs, it doesn't mean it's going to play out in the regular season. But, you know, let's see if he proves me wrong. Maybe he can be a decent head coach, and maybe once again next season guide this team to not only be a playoff team, but now maybe he can prove people that playoff run that they had this season was just not completely a fluke, and that they can of course make it to the playoffs again next year. Now LAFC, who, you know, I talked about before, they are still looking for a new head coach after Bob Bradley left them to join Toronto FC. Well, they are actually now rumored to be in talk with former Benfica youth head coach Renato, and I believe it's Pava, that's how you pronounce it. I might have just completely butchered that name, but anyway, you know, don't really know a lot about this guy other than the fact that he was a former youth head coach with Benfica, and also being a head coach of Benfica B, and currently coaching a team down in Ecuador, and actually won a title with the team that he's coaching right now in Ecuador. So he must be maybe a hot prospect of potentially a head coach that could be heading to MLS or even in Liga MX, as I also even heard a rumor before that he was going to Pachuca to become the new head coach of that team. But we'll see whether or not if this of course will work out, and if it does work out, it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to do, because, you know, anytime when you hire a guy that, you know, have no MLS experience and coming into this league completely foreign, you're definitely taking a bit of a gamble, and there's times where that gamble does pay off and it tends to be very well, and then there's time where that gamble does not pay off and he turns out to be a terrible head coach. Now, moving on in terms of now talking about player signings and players that is moving to another team. Well, you know, one of the player that I think this offseason is also going to make the jump to Europe and get a big money move is Tati Castillanos. I mean, after an incredible year of him winning the Golden Boot and also doing well in the playoffs and scoring a goal in MLS Cup, he has now become a player that is wanted by a lot of teams in Europe. And one of the team, at least from today that we have heard, well, actually not today, but more like yesterday, was West Ham. They were reported to scout and are interest to trying to sign Tati Castillanos from NYCFC. Now, this year, West Ham is definitely doing very well in the Premier League. And, you know, if Tati Castillanos does join that team, it's definitely not a bad team for him to join. Though, I will say that, you know, with West Ham having Mikel Antonio as their main striker, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not if Tati Castillanos is going to get minutes. And we know that he is a player that is clearly more comfortable playing in that number 9 position compared to him playing in the wing as he used to from NYCFC. And, you know, again, knowing the fact that West Ham already have a number 9 and a lethal number 9 that is Mikel Antonio, I just think that it's kind of interesting that to see why would they want to maybe sign another lethal number 9, and whether or not if this move does make sense for Tati Castillanos. But nevertheless, the Tati Castillanos watch this offseason is going to be interesting, and I won't be surprised the fact that we're going to talk a lot more about him and where he potentially could be moving on this offseason, because again, I have a feeling, I mean, if it's not this offseason, it's probably going to be the summer transfer window that he is going to be sold off. Like, again, he has proven that he is definitely the real deal, and that NYCFC should get a big money move and get a huge sum of money when they sold Tati Castillanos off to Europe. Now, one player that is going to be moving to another team, but it's not actually to Europe, but more like in South America, is Eduardo Atuesta, who I talked about in the last News of the Week episode, that it seems like he is on his way out of LAFC to move to Brazilian Giants Palmeiras. Well, that move has officially been official yesterday, as LAFC announced that Atuesta is going to be leaving the team, and Atuesta even had a thank you message to to the fans and especially the 3252 supporter group. But yeah, he is going to be moving to Palmeiras for $4 million and up to $7 million if performance criteria is met. And I think this latter part of this news is very important, because originally when I talk about how Atuesta going to Palmeiras for $4 million, I feel like that seems very cheap. Like, I feel like LAFC could have got more for Atuesta, consider how good he is with the team and how important he is, especially to that midfield. But now it seems like they could maybe get up to $7 million if performance criteria is made. Now, I don't know exactly what kind of performance criteria that he needs to meet if Palmeiras is going to give LAFC an additional $3 million. But all I'll say is that this does make the deal a little bit better, and that, yeah, you know, for LAFC, it is definitely tough for them to lose an important player in that midfield. But this is kind of how life is in MLS. You know, you're going to eventually have to sell off your best asset, and we'll see how LAFC potentially is going to replace Atuesta with the money that they earned from that Palmeiras gave it to them. Now, the New England Revolution is set to sign Sebastian Lletget for up to $1.3 million general allocation money. Now, I'm kind of surprised this move wasn't actually done in that half-day transfer window, because we've been talking about how Sebastian Lletget is potentially going to be going to the Revs and rejoin Bruce Arena when he's there. But now it seems like that deal is getting very close to being done, and it's really a matter of time before it is official. But for $1.3 million general allocation money, yeah, that is a lot of money. And I guess, you know, it's worth it, because Lletget, he is a regular for the U.S. men's national team, and also he's been a very important player to that Galaxy team, and you knew that Galaxy was not going to let him out for a cheap amount of money. But I still feel like $1.3 million, that seems like a lot of money. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Lletget should fit well with New England, and especially with the way that if Lletget is going to be a regular starter alongside with Carlos Hill, oh boy, get ready for a very dangerous team. And let's say if they even maybe keep Adam Buxaw and also Gustavo Bol heading into next season, boy, that is going to be a really dangerous trio alongside with Sebastian Lletget, who you know, Bruce Arena knows how to get the best out of him. So in the end, I think maybe that's not, maybe if I see it that side, maybe the $1.3 million isn't that bad. But you know, anytime when you have that big of an amount of general allocation money, you better hope that player that you got is able to work out. And by the way, for the Galaxy, you know, even though they are going to lose Lletget, they're already finding themselves to try to find a replacement, as it was reported that they're looking to sign Paul Arriola from DC United. Now, you know, the $1.3 million that they are potentially going to get for Sebastian Lletget, I wonder if that's going to be used to try to get Paul Arriola from DC United, because, you know, I think for DC, if they are going to trade Paul Arriola to another team, at bare minimum, I think it's $1 million general allocation money, and maybe even more too, because we know how important Paul Arriola is for DC, and we'll see whether or not if DC is reluctant to sell him. I mean, DC have already loaned him off to Europe, though it didn't really quite work out, and we'll see whether or not if they again he is such an important player for them on the attack. And you know, if they see the price is right, they probably will do so. But again, I have a feeling if they are going to if the Galaxy are going to try to replace Lletget with Arriola, which is not a bad replacement, because like Lletget, Arriola is a regular for the U.S. men's national team and has been proving to be a very good player in MLS. But it's going to cost a lot of money, and it might even cost more than the $1.3 million that they're going to receive from New England by getting Sebastian Lletget. Now, one player that is going to be returned from the Galaxy is Sacha Kljestan, who signed, I think, a one-year extension for the Galaxy. And although I know Sacha Kljestan is getting up to that age, and I won't be surprised maybe next year might be his final year in his playing career, I think this is just a move where Sacha Kljestan, knowing the fact that he's such a leader to that team and just such a good guy in the locker room, there was no doubt the Galaxy was going to bring him back, even if he's probably not going to be playing a lot of minutes, and that there's even some that say he could potentially be a player head coach in the future, because again, he is just such a leader, and he is a guy that I won't be surprised in the future once his playing career is over. He might have a future becoming head coach either in MLS or maybe in other leagues. Now, the New England Revolution, they also have signed defender Dejuan Jones to a contract extension through 2024, and this, of course, is a no-brainer. And, you know, New England, we know that they have a lot of good players on the team, but one player that I think people have not give him enough credit on how such an important player for the Revs is Dejuan Jones, because he quietly had a really good year, probably the most underrated defender in this league last season with the shift that he's been putting in, and he definitely was rewarded with getting a contract extension to 2024 from the New England Revolution. Now, speaking of contract extension, NYCFC have re-signed Nicholas Acevedo, Jadian Zalilam, and Aber to a contract extension. Now, this is kind of a little bit of an interesting one because Acevedo, I believe he's been having some injury issue, and then Jadian Zalilam, a guy that hasn't really been featured a lot, and when he did feature for NYCFC once, he got sent off, and that I thought that was probably going to be the last straw for him and his future with NYCFC, but no, it seems like he's going to be staying with the team, and then that alongside with Aber, who, you know, he's still on that road of recovery from that torn ACL that he suffered in the previous year. But, you know, these three players, I thought NYCFC could have easily maybe get rid of them, but I guess maybe they want to keep hold of these players that, you know, that I don't think these players really take a lot hit in terms of the overall cap that NYCFC has. So I think they're just happy to give them some contract extension and hope to you know, in the case of Acevedo and Zalilam, they hope that they can still develop their career before potentially moving on from the club. And in the case of Bear, they're still hoping that he can go back to the form that he was in his first season with NYCFC, because, you know, again, Bear, before he was become one of the most snake-bit striker in the league and then went down with a torn ACL injury, he was considered one of the most lethal attacker for this NYCFC team. And especially if Tati Castillanos is going to be sold off from NYCFC, he's going to be now the main number 9, and that NYCFC is going to be hoping that he can maybe replicate the good form that he had in his first year, so that they don't really miss Tati Castillanos heading into next season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the news of the week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all these news? And as always, if there's any news I didn't mention, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.